Chapter 18. The Odd Sister's Spy. At the top of a grassy hill was a dark green gingerbread-style mansion, trimmed with gold and with black shutters. Its roof stretched skyward, its shape resembling a tall witch's cap. Nestled within the house were the Odd Sisters, having their morning tea. Martha was bringing in a tray of hot blueberry scones when she heard Lucinda squeal with delight. "She's here! She's here!" All the sisters ran to the window, tripping over themselves to see who was there. She walked up the dirt path, her beautiful golden eyes lined in black shine with little specks of green in the morning light as she made her way to the front door. Martha was there to greet her. "Florence, hello! Ruby, quick, get her a saucer of milk." Florence walked in calmly among the frenzied squeals of excitement that surrounded her. She took her customary seat at the kitchen table, where her saucer of milk was already waiting for her. Lucinda spoke first. "We've seen everything, Florence." She was shaking with delight. She was so excited. "Yes, everything. We've seen it all," said Ruby. "You've done well, our beloved." They surrounded her, chattering away like little birds while she drank her milk. The heels of their boots were making a clicking sound on the wood floor as they sang Florence's praises. Circe came into the room, bleary-eyed, to see why her sisters were in such a blissful tizzy at that early hour. "Ah, I see Florence has finally come home." She stroked Florence on the head as she finished up her milk. "And where did you get off to, pretty girl?" Circe's older sisters looked at each other fearfully, which only succeeded in making them look guilty. It was rare Circe let them get away with their small deceptions. They found it very hard to keep secrets from their little sister. They were often up to some sort of skullduggery anyway, so it wasn't a stretch when she'd asked what they'd been doing. It was almost as if they'd like being caught by her. "Or perhaps I should be asking you ladies what you've been doing." Lucinda put on the most innocent face she could conjure, but it didn't fool Circe. "Oh, don't try pulling that one with me, Lucinda. I know when you've been up to your trickery. Now out with it." Florence looked up at the witches. All four of them blinked slowly in thanks for the milk, adjusted her paws, and jumped down from the table. She was above such conversations. She curled up in front of the fireplace while the sisters had it out. "So?" Circe had her hand on her hip, waiting for her older sisters to answer. "Florence has been with the prince, keeping an eye on him for us. That's all." Circe rolled her eyes. "I told you not to meddle with him. I told you to leave him alone." Martha almost knocked over the teapot in protest. "We haven't meddled, I promise. We've just been looking in on him." Circe couldn't help asking, "And what did you see?" But she knew the moment she asked it was a mistake. The words rained down on her like a storm. She got caught in the flurry of their fragmented stories that they were all too pleased to share. "Oh, we've seen everything. Nasty, terrible things. Worse than we imagined. Murder. Lies. He drove a girl to suicide. She jumped off the cliffs. Ugly, nasty, horrible beast. Broken hearts, romancing tarts. Ah, are we rhyming now? Lovely." Circe put an end to it before the rhyming continued. No, you're not. No rhyming." Much like everyone else, Circe found it hard to follow her sisters when they got excited. You'd think after almost 20 years of living with them, it would get easier. But as the years passed, their mania just made Circe's head spin more. "Sisters, please, just one of you speak, and please tell it slowly and in a straight line." The three witches were stone silent. "I know you are capable of speaking normally. I've heard you do it. Please." Ruby spoke. "He turned into the beast, as we thought he would. He almost killed Gaston while stalking in the forest." Circe looked disappointed. "But he didn't kill him. So there's still hope?" Lucinda's already pinched lips puckered even smaller. You could always tell how angry she was by how small her lips became. "You still love him, don't you?" Circe walked away from her sisters and sat on the chair next to the fireplace to be near Florence. "I wish you could talk, dear Florence. I wish you could tell me what happened so I wouldn't have to suffer these lunatic sisters of mine." Martha chucked her teacup at the wall in frustration. How dare you? Ruby had tears flowing from her eyes. I never thought to hear such words from you, little sister, not after everything we've done for you. Cersei put an end to the theatrics at once. Just stop. All of you. Stop. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. It's just sometimes you do drive me to distraction. Of course I'm not in love with him. I had just hoped he would have learned his lesson, changed his ways, and made a better life for himself. Lucinda smiled at her little sister. Of course, dear. You always cared about people, we know. Sometimes we forget that we are not alike. We care only for you. We love you for your compassion. We just do not share it. Cersei didn't understand her sisters. They lived in a world logical only to them, with their own twisted moral code. Often, what they said made sense to her intellectually. Other times, their words simply confused her. This made her thankful for her capacity for compassion. Without it, she felt she would be just like her older sisters. It's hard to feel sorry for those willing to fling themselves into disaster. They are their own undoing, my dear. They bring it upon themselves. They don't merit your pity. Cersei sighed, because she knew there was logic in her sister's argument. There was just no heart. They sat to tea, chatting about everything the prince had done since she had last seen him, this time more calmly. He thought he could break the curse with poor Tulip, and she really did love him, adored him. But he blamed her when their kiss did not break the curse. Of course he didn't love her. Not really. Not true love. She loved him, true. But the curse dictates both given and received. He thought his selfish version of love would fool us, and he broke her heart in the process. Cersei felt horrible for what had happened to Princess Tulip, and resigned herself to making things right for her and her family. Lucinda saw in Cersei's face that she felt guilty. The prince did that to her, Cersei. Not you. Cersei sighed and said, I know, but he destroyed her and her family trying to break the curse. My curse. Martha smiled at her little sister. The old queen blighted the land and left a trail of disaster and death in her wake. Should we blame ourselves? Ruby laughed. Oh, how she would have hated to be called the old queen, but that is what she has become so many years after her death. She's become the old queen of legend and myth. But we know the truth. We know she was real, the queen who ruined herself over grief and vanity. Lucinda joined in the laughter. Oh, she would have hated that name indeed. She would fling hearses and threaten to kill anyone who referred to her as such. But she's dead now. Dead, dead, dead. Fallen off the rocky cliffs. Cersei remembered Tulip. So, it was she, Tulip, who was driven to suicide? Who threw herself off the cliffs? Cersei asked. Oh, I think she did for the loss of her daughter and of herself. She drowned in her own misery and regret in the end. I almost felt sorry for her. Cersei wondered how many stories like this she hadn't heard from her sisters. It was clear they were not speaking of Tulip, but some queen who had thrown herself from a cliff. No, I meant Tulip. Your words led me to believe she'd thrown herself off the cliff of her father's shores. Lucinda answered, She did, my dear, but she was saved by our friend Ursula. Cersei glared at her sisters. And what did the sea witch demand in return? Ruby looked hurt. You think so little of the company we keep? Lucinda added, And how would we know what Ursula took from her? We are not privy to the goings-ons in every kingdom. Cersei gave her sister a look as if she knew very well that was a lie, and her sister relented, as they often did with their Cersei. She was their one weakness. She took nothing from her she actually needed. Cersei didn't look convinced. I want you to make it right with Ursula. You give her something in exchange for whatever she took from Tulip, and I am going to sort out the kingdom's affairs. Lucinda looked deeply unhappy. If you insist. Cersei narrowed her eyes. I do. And sisters, we're to see that Tulip's beauty is returned to her without delay. Ruby was surprised their little sister had guessed what the sea witch had swapped for Tulip's life. Circe smiled smugly. Don't look so surprised. Ursula's beauty was ripped from her years ago, so it would stand to reason she would try to regain it by devious means. I think it's terrible what happened to her, but it doesn't excuse her actions. Lucinda spoke. Doesn't it? Someone has stolen her beauty and absconded with her true voice. Her losses are too many to count. So much was taken from her, and it's scattered across the vast ocean so she may never find it again. And for what? A trifle. Circe rolled her eyes at her sisters again. Ursula's deeds were not trifles. Lucinda continued. Whatever our differing opinions may be, I will do what you ask because I love you far too much to watch you suffer and blame yourself for Tulip's unhappiness. Martha looked panicked. But what will we give her? Nothing too precious, nothing from the vault. Ruby was also in a panic over the thought of giving something away to Ursula. Circe would have us give away all our treasures. First one of our enchanted mirrors, now what? Lucinda, who seemed unusually calm, quelled Martha's fears. Don't worry, we won't part with anything too precious. I promise. Then she looked to Circe. I assume you will be off to Morningstar Castle straight away? Circe had in fact decided she would venture out there right away. Yes, I will. Lucinda went to the pantry and pushed a few things about until she found what she was looking for, a little velvet drawstring bag. When you get there, go to the cliffs and give Ursula this. She will be waiting for you. And she added, Tulip's beauty will be returned. Circe smiled, transforming herself from her just-awoken, disheveled state to one that was more than presentable for a journey to Morningstar Kingdom. I'll be off then. Don't get into any trouble while I'm away. It may be some time before I return.